Thank you for joining our workshop today. My name is Sister Anna Muhammad. I'm the Food Access Director. You'll hear more from me later. I'm going to do some housekeeping as it relates to NOFA Mass, and then we'll turn it over to Cristina, our moderator. So again, welcome to today's workshop. And we just got a few opening slides. How's everyone enjoying the conference so far? We're enjoying it? Outstanding, all right. So just to let you know, we are presenting this conference on land that was stewarded by the Nipmuc people prior to European colonization. They are still here. If you want to honor and learn more about the people whose lands that you currently live on, steward, or occupy, you can use that website. I'm gonna move something around here so you can see it. Go to that website and you can find the indigenous family, their area, your area, and show honor to our family in those places. We're going to talk a little bit about NOFA's commitment to racial equity in the food system. We recognize that our agricultural system is built on stolen land and the forced labor and exploitation of stolen Black, Indigenous, and other people of color. Our conference aims to help to address this harm and bring equity to the food system. We invite you today, and you'll probably see why after our conversation today, to join one of our caucus sessions. They happen at 1 o'clock from 1 to 2 in Sheenan Hall. So you have the BIPOC caucus that will take place in Sheenan Hall in the multi-purpose room, and then the White Ally caucus that will also take place in Sheenan Hall in the dining room. Additionally, we always have a call to action for our participants. So we just have a few things that we like to invite you to join us in. First of all, protecting the rights of farm and food workers, supporting legislation to advance the work toward reparations, and then to support BIPOC-led organizations through sharing land, money, equipment, and connections. We have some examples of those types of organizations here on the screen. I'm not going to read all those to you, but look in your communities, your nearby communities. You might find organizations similar to these that are BIPOC-led. Please lend your resources, your support, your money. Yeah, I had to mention that. So speaking of money, we want to thank our partner sponsors. These sponsors help us put on our conferences. You're looking there at our partner level sponsors. They are in the vending area. Please go by, see what they have, give them some support. We're very grateful for their support. And these are our supporter level sponsors. You see them on the screen now. Again, go by, check them out in the vending areas. So at this point, without any more from myself, I'll bring up NESAWG's Executive Director, Cristina. She will be the moderator for today's session, and we're looking forward to a very lively session, have questions, have comments, and we're just gonna have an interaction of ideas. So Cristina, if you're ready, I turn everything over to you.
Well, hi, everyone. Welcome, and thank you for coming. It's a pleasure to have you here today. And I'm gonna, sorry, I'm so sorry. County's on the tech move. We're here today because NESAWG is focusing on racial equity-based transformation at an organizational level, which is this session this morning. And then at a regional level will be on Sunday morning for your schedule at 9 o'clock. That would be virtual. So today here we're going to focus on the organizational level, and there are some organizations that have already started their transformation. Others who are in the midst of it, others who are thinking about it. And so we're going to learn from each other, share experiences with these fabulous panelists that we have here, and with questions from the audience as well, and shared experiences. So basically, we're going to do a little bit of an intro from our panelists. We're going to do maybe a couple of announcements, go into the questions around how we have been going through the different transformation, racial equity-based transformation in our organizations. And at the very end, there's going to be Q&A. And we're also connected online with virtual folks on the other end of the screen who will also have the opportunity to share their questions. There's going around, so if you could please, there's a couple of them. Yes, for anybody who has just walked in, if you can add your information here, it would be wonderful so that we can stay connected and start building these relationships of transformation in the farm and food system, so that we can have a farm and food system that's equitable and just for all. We're going to have some introductions now from our panelists. We have panelists from NOFA Mass. We have panelists from NESAWG, the Northeast Sustainable Agriculture Working Group, and we have a farmer. And Jen Salomon, she'll be able to introduce herself. So different experiences, different perspectives, different angles. Maybe we can start on that end. Karen, are you okay starting on your end? Yes. Who are you? Where are you located? What's your organization? And yeah, just very briefly.
Hello, everyone. It's still good morning to this brand new day. And I'm Karen Spiller. I am the CAS Consulting, Principal of CAS Consulting, and my affiliations and networks and relationships, NESAWG for many, many years, NOFA Mass for many, many years, Food Solutions New England. So I live in Boston, Mass, but my service is Massachusetts, regionally across New England, nationally and internationally. Racial justice, food justice, racial equity is at the core of everything I do in all systems, food, education, health, in all systems. It's part of what I believe our well-being and belonging, core to our existence and our transformation. And so honored to be here with you.
Thank you. And Ulum?
Hi, everyone. So my name is Ulum Pixan, and I work as an education director in NOFA Mass. And I'm a co-director of equity and inclusion with my partner right here in crime. And I'm also a farmer. I have a small homestead farm in Grafton, Massachusetts, Nimook territory. And the same as Karen, I'm in the board, of NESAWG. So that's kind of the things that put us together. And I do language justice with some folks. So that's the other racial lens that I bring. So if you have questions, we can talk later. And I'm gonna pass it to Sister Anna.
Susanna, thank you.
Well, Grand Rising, everyone. I'm doing a little double duty today. So as you heard earlier, I am the Food Access Director for NOFA Mass. I get in good trouble with both of these young women here. And Ulum Pixan. I also am on the board of NESAWG. And a lot of my work is in Springfield, Mass, where I live. I also do work in Boston and currently in Worcester. So I get a chance to go across the state, Hartford, Connecticut, and Providence, Rhode Island are newer areas that we're working in. And where racial justice is important with our youth. A lot of the work for us is that nitty gritty. How do we take ownership and control and self-determination over the foods that we have in our communities? Sometimes we're just left with whatever is left. It may not be the best for us. So it's giving a voice to our youth, to our elders, to all of our community members to make choices and develop their own choices towards healthier food and developing that access. And at the core is racial justice. What are the foods that we eat? Honoring the growing traditions that we brought with us as enslaved persons. And so I get that opportunity to do that with youth, with families, and it's a great thing. And I get to do it in partnership, and working with NESAWG really gets to put it on a whole regional level And it's really a wonderful opportunity for me and for the families to use that work.
Thank you. Chad.
Good rising, everyone. It's really a pleasure and honor to share time and space with you. And with all of my sisters here on the panel. We have intersected in many different ways, some in newer ways than others. And Lindsay being my newest connection. But my name is Jen Salonetti. I am co-founder of Woven Roots Farm and Education Center. I am a farmer. I'm in my third decade of farming. And I am also Director of Education, Community Engagement at Woven Roots Farm. And I serve on the board at NOFA Mass. I'm vice president. I'm co-chair of the Equity and Inclusion Committee, where I get into all sorts of good trouble with Sister Anna and Ulum Pixan. And so my work, on the day-to-day, within my own lived experience, and within my community is always centered around racial justice. It's been something that has been started more as a personal endeavor of mine. And where I farm is in the present day Berkshires, which is on unceded Mohican lands. And when I started farming in the Berkshires, I was the only BIPOC farmer currently in the area. And so it was, through my own lived experience of feeling tremendous isolation and a deep need and desire to connect and reconnect with my people that I started this work immediately, within my own business. And it's been really amazing to see how that has taken shape over the years, and how I and through collaboration with others have been able to uplift voices that are so often unseen and unheard. A lot of the work that I've done with my farm has been in tandem with the growth and change that's been happening within NOFA Mass. So we have been very supportive to each other. And I'll speak more later about how essential collaboration really is in transforming the food system. So
Thank you, Jen.
Good morning, everyone. I feel incredibly blessed to be with this group of women. I am Lindsay Gilmore. I live in Philadelphia on unceded land. I am a chef by trade, and these days I work as a chef. I focus in healing food and local food, sustainable food. I've been very involved in the local food movement, as we used to call it back in the day, in the Philadelphia area, and that eventually led me to working with farmers, teaching them about food safety and produce safety, which is a huge barrier for farmers to scale up and become sustainable in the capitalist world anyway. So I do that work nationally and regionally, and in my region, I work with a team of community-based food safety educators. I'm the only white person on that team. The goal of that team is to be able to create spaces where BIPOC farmers can feel comfortable coming to learn about food safety, because food safety is truly part of the white supremacist culture in a lot of ways. Although, of course, we all need to know how to work with food safety. I'm on the NESAWG board. I'm co-chairs actually with Ulum and Sister Anna. And in the last 10 years, I've worked with NESAWG and another organization that actually doesn't exist anymore, the Chesapeake Food Shed Network. I've been on a journey of understanding what it means to operationalize equity. Practice how to say that. I can kind of speak to what that's like as a white person. And it's an amazing journey and an uncomfortable journey that we all need to go on. So I'm really happy that there are quite a few white people in this room today.
Thank you, Lindsay. I like that.
Yes, greetings, everyone. Beautiful rising. It is so wonderful to see each and every one of you in this room. and to sit on this panel with this amazing group of women. So grateful. I'm Malika Gilpin, and I am a part of the NESAWG staff. I've been the conference manager since 2018. And so it's been really interesting because I had the wonderful opportunity to come into NESAWG as we were beginning our transition. And so we're gonna share. I also I'm coming from Philadelphia, the unceded land of the Lenape. And I'm here with my daughter, Koshia, Shia for short, who's our tech extraordinaire. And we in Philadelphia, we have a farm, an urban eco arts village called One Art Community Center. And we just celebrated our 20th anniversary of being on the land. Yeah, I'm just like constantly taking a breath, like, okay. And so it's been a really incredible intersection working with NESAWG because, you know, I've been working with at our farm, One Art. We get to work with a lot of local organizations, a lot of urban farms. We work with, you know, all the Black and brown farmers in Philadelphia in some way. And so being able to come into NESAWG and start like expanding that connection has been really special. Yeah, so we're here. Our organization, One Art, is also going through a little bit of its own transition. So it's been such a learning opportunity and experience, and I look forward to sharing with you all and also envisioning with you all what a sustainable food system change rooted in love, what does that look like to us? We're creating that together, each and every one of you. You're in this room because this is important to you. So we're gonna be envisioning it, and you know, this whole time, that's why we're all together. We get to share, exchange, and strengthen each other as we go on our own individual journeys and collective journeys to really creating that just and equitable food system. So welcome to the space, welcome to our session, and welcome to the journey.
Thank you so much, Mike, and everybody. As you can see, it's a fabulous panel. I do want to give a minute, a little bit of time for Shia to introduce herself and her role at NESAWG. She's a wonderful staff person. Shia.
Hello, everyone. Morning. I am Shia. Use she, her pronouns, and I am the program manager at NESAWG. So I get the chance to work with these great ladies over here. Yeah, and I help support our comms work as well. Yeah, so I'm super excited for you all to be here in community with us today and get to grow with us as we move on this transition and this journey. So yeah, thank you all.
Thank you. And my name, Cristina Cabrera, Chunchip Deer Spirit is my traditional name. And I am living in Providence, what is now known as Providence, Rhode Island, and Narragansett unceded territory. I'm the executive director of NESAWG and very happy to see you all. And we want to know who you are as well. So Shia, do we have a poll?
Yeah, so I think, you know, we got some information from folks on the sheet that went around, but if you want to tell us more about yourselves, we have on Whova, if you go to the app and go to our session, you'll see a poll there. Just asking a little more about your organizations that you all come from, where you come from, just a little bit more if you want to share with us. So yeah, if you just visit the Whova app, it should be there on the session. But definitely put your information on the sign sheet that went around too.
Is there anyone who didn't get this?
It's another one over there.
Oh,
Oh, great. Okay, great. I was like, we have more people in the room. Okay.
So if you go now to Google, then the results will come up on the screen, right?
Yeah, and then they will be there for all of us to look at. So if you make any connections today, you'll be able to see them too.
Okay, there's a couple of announcements before we start with this panel. And I want to give a minute to Karen Spiller at the end of the. We're doing. Camera shuffle. So,
Musical chairs.
Karen, there's a couple of cards that we can pass around as well, but if we can maybe do it in a minute.
Very
Go ahead.
quickly. There are two things, and one of them is the annual 21-day racial equity habit building challenge. How many of you have participated in the past? Okay, participate this year, April 3 to 23. And so the card you'll get has a QR code to sign up. What you'll receive is a daily email that'll give you links to readings, articles, videos, art, so you can start reflecting on what it means to be in the spirit of, in community of racial equity every single day. And there are pieces there that talk and give us more understanding about the history, the immigrant farming, the indigenous ways, health, wellness, our youth, as Sis Anna mentioned earlier, and certainly understanding the roots of racism and inequities in our food system. So please join us. There are a lot of different ways you can engage with our weekly forum. We have a weekly, I call it the Friday challenge discussion. You get a chance to connect with people that are really committed to being different. And so it's wherever you are in that journey, please join us. The other thing I'd like to share is the Southern New England Farmers of Color Collaborative. It's in Southern New England states, Connecticut, Rhode Island, and Massachusetts. We have created an opportunity for, we call it farmer circles. So farmers of color coming together up to 12 times a year to share their wisdom, their knowledge, their passion, and also build on relationships and resources that are there. Sometimes it's cooperative buying, cooperative brainstorming, but the card that Cristina passed out is there for you to use the QR code to snap it. And once you share your information, we will get you into the right state. We also have New Hampshire. Oris is one of our partners, an opportunity for immigrant success. And so there, right now, we have one in its second year in Connecticut, and we're launching Massachusetts, Rhode Island, and New Hampshire in this year. So please share that with any farmers of color who might be interested in being a part of that growing and evolving network of farmers really sharing and building together. So I wanted to offer those two opportunities to be in network, in community, and continue to increase our belonging and well-being. Thank you for that opportunity.
Karen. So we have an hour left and we are going to start with some questions for the panelists. And there's definitely going to be time at the end, 20 minutes for Q&A and some share and exchange from your end, on your end. If you have questions, the cards that we just handed out, maybe you can write them down. If you need some pencils, there's some here that can go around as well. Yeah, let's start with the panel. Any questions? No? Good. Okay. Not all panelists will be able to answer the questions, each and every single question. So I'm going to ask whoever feels moved to answering the question from NESAWG and from NOFA and from a farmer's perspective. Those are the three perspectives that we'll be giving to the answers to these questions. We'll start with the first one. We have about 6 minutes for each question. So we would like to know your organization or your farm business, how has it changed its identity over time and its values and culture? So who would like to start with that first question?
May I start?
Go ahead.
I would just like to, from the NESAWG, start from that point, that foundation. And I'm going to share it through the lens of transformation. And so when we're talking about where we are now, thank you, Cristina, for being here in this place right now as the guide, the partner, the visionary and actionary, solutionary for NESAWG. Much gratitude for that. I've been a part of NESAWG, and as you know, it's coming to workshops and business and work regionally with them for years, but I was a part of the board probably 2013. But in 2015, we came to an understanding that we needed to, when we talk about transformation and talking about regional, Northeast, and serving communities, serving the producer, because the producer needs communities in order to be able to do that. We need each other, both and. That we needed to take a stronger look, a more deeper look on what it looks like to be racially focused, equity focused, and understanding that that really is a core value we needed to not just put in our text. You know how many organizations have, even years ago, would kind of imply it or put it in their text of their vision, mission, and values, or definition of what we do. But we realized that we needed to live that. We needed to understand what it meant to be that. Understanding that we are all at different stages of transformation any given day. I'm at a different stage of transformation. So recognizing that as we come together as a network, we're all at different points of view, different lives, experiences, different identities. In order to honor that, we needed to step back and think about, how do we address that? How do we lean into that? And how do we come together with shared values and shared vision and mission so that we could amplify our commitment to racial equity? So that was 2015. And at the time, maybe 2 people of color were of that organization. And so over time, we really spent intentional effort around, what do we look like and what do we want to be and what do we need to do in order to be that? So consciously working on strategic planning, revisioning, refocusing, and looking at our assets and looking at also what we needed to amplify, again, extend, and be that something different we wanted to be. And so we did things like that first in 2015, because at the time we were always meeting in Albany, New York. So just think about that. Everybody's always coming to Albany. And we decided to add an equity breakfast so that, again, and when people came together for NESAWG's conference, they were going to get a shared experience around equity. So it could be a decision making. It could be learning about the levels of racism and how to manage and move through those. But it was always a focus on a topic and a skill set. We also initiated the POC, because people of color caucuses. So those happened in the evening. And I'm trying to make this really, really quick. Happened in the evening, because I think it's important to understand that piece. I think you wanted me to do that in the evening before the conference, because again, most people look like Annalena. They didn't look like me, right? So we had the people of color caucus the evening before so we could meet and greet and build relationships. So when we went into the conference the next day, I could go and say, Sis Anna, let me sit with you. We already are building relationships across our lived commonalities. And again, over time, we certainly did strategic planning and mission, vision, and value work, and making a commitment that who we are needs to reflect what we want to happen, and both and back and forth. What also is significant for that transformation is that we stopped going to only Albany for our conferences, and we went to Baltimore, Maryland. So that in a shift right there, the people who attended were looking different, bringing in different skill, different, and not always so different, but because it looks like it's different, but we all wanted health and wellness. We all wanted equity. We all wanted to belong. We all wanted viable avenues for our product to go to market. We all wanted that. We also went to Philly, right? Another deterrent from the Albany, New York, as well as we ended up in Hartford, Connecticut. What else could be more vibrant in lived identities, diverse identities coming together? So again, we intentionally started making our network more of who we wanted to be. You know, making, and also intentionally making it a place that people that look like me want to be, want to be a part of that. They want to join that. They want to contribute to that. They want to live in that. And so that when we talk about our transformation as NESAWG, it was seeing that this is a universe we have, this is where we want to be, and we started making steps towards something different. And now we have being something different, so important for us to be able to do that. So I just wanted to share that when you think about transformation and how it starts, it doesn't happen all at once, but it certainly does take commitment. It takes shared values and stepping back and recognizing we all are different places of the continuum and inviting in. We heard the community agreements earlier, inviting the differences so you can understand and actually bring in some of those differences to amplify what we want to do. We all have skills and commitment to bring to the table. So I will pause. You know, everyone knows that I can talk. You asked me to do this.
2015 NESAWG was 90% white led, and now 2022 it's 90% BIPOC led. So it has been changed.
And can I just venture
Yeah.
back on what Mama Karen was sharing is there was like this intentional shift, right? So it was like instead of with my position as conference manager, instead of previously there had been conference managers contracted in. But when I came in 2018, this was a position, you know, it was a part of the staff, and bringing on a person of color was a big part of what that looked like and that shift. And like, this is not just a one-off, you do this conference and then it's done, like, you know, creating that longevity in the position. So there was that happening in the staff. And as Cristina was sharing, you know, now we're 90% BIPOC, or what's some percentage?
Or 95%.
Right.
95.
Right, and then our board, and so that was the other big shift. So it was, you know, staff, board, but it was all of these things that we have been talking about, and now we were actually doing it.
So we heard about NESAWG. I know that we're tight with time, but I do want to hear about, from a farmer's perspective, how has your identity changed and your culture changed and values changed over time in this transition of grounding yourself in a racial equity based farming system?
Yeah, thank you for asking that. It's so interesting to hear on the organizational level, especially because of my work with NOFA, and as I spoke to before, some of that the work that I've done on my farms level has been in tandem with what's been occurring over the last 6 years or so within NOFA. And so some of that has been, while, my own recognition of, my own commitment to racial equity was something that I held really close to myself for many years when I first started farming, because there were so many aspects of just establishing a business that felt vulnerable enough. And so, my initial goal to be able to cultivate food that was wholesome, was that first skill as a farmer that I needed to really hone in on. And then within that, I started thinking about, okay, so where are the access points to this food? And that piece was something that, took some learning within my community, to see, initially thinking, okay, well, we'll have a farm stand that's set up, and, we can have signage that is bilingual, and so that would make it accessible. But then I started to take those steps back and, have conversations with folks saying, oh, I'd love to be able to get this food, but I can't get to your farm. The transportation is a major issue, particularly in rural communities. So that was something that became, a front and center need within creating equitable access in the community. And that took collaboration with others, other organizations, other individuals within the community. And so, I can recognize within the context of how much it takes to run a farm that there are many components of this work that I would never be able to actualize without those collaborations. And so the community partnership that we have with Finco Nunabuco, which is in the northern part of our region, the work that we do with NOFA Mass, with the youth in Springfield, and the community partnerships that we have with Sister Anna there, has been really instrumental in being able to uplift our access points. Probably some of the more recent aspects of our work have really honed in on language justice. I thought I had an understanding of that until I started to really see some fine examples of that, and take trainings within that, and start to really leave space for that, both in the communications that we offer to our CSA members, both written as well as verbal. When we're doing programming, leaving space for the language justice component to be there, making sure that it's known that that is accessible. And even if it's just one person that needs that, that's something that we're going to offer. And putting efforts towards finding funding to be able to cover that is a priority, that we have put, embedded in our within our our strategic goals. There's, another component that that we've changed over time is really just leaving space within our production crew to like dedicated space to really have the harder conversations, and really being able to put the priority around decentering whiteness, and just facing the systems of oppression that we are all beholden to in many ways, and what being able to create the space to address that as individuals somewhat fearlessly has taken time there, and we have, as a farm, there are people that come and that are only with us for a season. So thinking about how to stretch that out, how to really impart moments throughout our work week together to be able to hold and reflect some of the more internal processes. And I have to say, Food Solutions New England and the Racial Equity Challenge has played an instrumental role in really actualizing that for us. So I think our farm started doing it, I want to say 2016. I'm looking to you because you were the one that introduced me to it. I think it was 2016. Yeah, and that was the whole format that Karen was speaking to is really something that spanned, we stretch it out over the course of the year. There's just a tremendous wealth of information that's there, and prompts and curiosities that have made it really easy for us to normalize that within our work days. And so we have our farm crawl established before April. It's not the best time for farmers. I'm gonna just say that right now, but we do try to get it rolling as much as we can, and then carry that work out throughout the season together. So that's another component of it. We think a lot about what our communication systems are. We're evaluating a lot more about who holds power within the farm, and really laying out more roles and responsibilities so that we can create more pathways of accountability. And that has been through a lot of the work that I've been doing with NOFA Mass, with work that NOFA Mass has been doing with the Aorta Co-op, as well as the Food Solutions New England. So I feel like those are some areas that I really draw on. And I feel like there's more, but I'll leave it at that
Thank
because
you
of our
so
time.
much.
Yeah.
We're gonna merge, like the second question and go to NOFA Mass. And ask also, how has NOFA Mass changed, over the years? Your identity, your culture, your values, and what time frame have you been working with, since you started on this journey?
Listen to it first.
You
It
do-
is the part.
You do first.
I'll do the first part. So I think the biggest part of this, if you all pick up, there's a lot of intersection between us, but then between the work from the farmer to what we do in the community to what we do regionally. And to give you a snapshot, my husband and I have been coming to NOFA conferences for years, even before I started working for the organization. And he always used a old Richard Pryor joke. He would say to me, well, baby, I see some Black people. I said, where? You and me? And me and you. This was in the 2009s and 13s and 14s. And when I came on staff in 2016, it really was just a handful of us. So when I say a handful of us, me on staff, Jen on the board, and we had one other person on the board. That was it. That was it. Now, you fast forward and you see us here in 2023. We've got Ulum Pixan leading one of our major departments. You see the Inclusion, Equity and Inclusion Committee, which started as a one-off, as an ad hoc committee. It wasn't part of NOFA's main committees. So we're looking at intention and attention now. So the intent was that this would be kind of a side note. But then as more attention was placed, proper attention, now you see it as one of the major committees that's paving the way for policy, for implementation of programming. And then my position, which was really started as a one-off, oh, by the way kind of position, because we have these 2 grants that we have to fulfill. And it'd be great to get this Black woman out of Springfield because she'll be a good face for it. I'm keeping it real, as you say, I'm keeping it 100. But now we see that it is a separate department with its own leadership head. So when you talk about timeline, Cristina, this is over a period now of, I think I'm in my 7th season with the organization. So there's a lesson here about patience and perseverance, and that this is definitely not an overnight journey. And we're recognizing, even though we're putting intention and attention and making some key changes, even to where we're holding conferences now, because we're having that same conversation about, okay, maybe we don't need to go in the rural areas so much. We're having more of our education events in the Bostons, the Worcesters, the Springfields, where we are. So now you get a taste of the whole state. I'll end with this. I had this conversation with our executive director, and she'd asked me a question about how the board and staff should look. I said it should be representative of the state. The state is not just the itty bitty rural areas. It is the populous cities of Springfield, Worcester, and Boston, where a great deal of us live. And that has to be represented in the board and staff. In order for NOFA to be true to its mission and vision about serving all communities, we got to see that representation. And so just the language justice that you're seeing today in our conference, that's over a period of 7 years of that development. So I want to really put out there being patient, being preserving, even in the face of people, not always understanding what you're trying to do. But this has been a process and a great journey. So yeah, now we no longer say that we're the two beans in the bowl of rice. But now we see more reflective of the work that's taking place. So Ulum, I'll let you pick up from where you started, which has been what, 2 years now?
3 years, yeah. So it's really interesting because your story, Jen, is like kind of the opposite of my story. You were a farmer first, and then because you see the social justice injustices or the racial injustices in the food system as a producer and as farmer. I come from the other end. I have done a lot of racial, environmental, women's work, indigenous people's work back home and here. And then I went back to my roots, like my grandparents were farmers back home, and I really yearned for that. So I started my farm with that first. And I'm trying to struggle to survive as a farmer because it's really hard to make money when you hold in a vision to give your food to people that need it and to people that look like you. So the market is really inundated of food that is for white folks, right? Very bland. So CSA, I always call people, we don't sell the Betty Crocker CSA. Like, that's not what I sell. And people is like, why so much cilantro? And I'm like, but my folks are like, can we get more cilantro, right? Or like, what is this kind of pepper? When they see like, other peppers that is not the red regular bell pepper. So I think like, and then I understood that I wasn't gonna be able to do it on my own in my little tiny, so I have a nonprofit that I have to have, so I can have volunteers, because as a business, you cannot have volunteers. And, the state cracks down on that, and obviously they're gonna crack down on white people, always starts with us, because we stick like a sore thumb. And so I have to have everything online and understand the rules of the business. I run my business, my farm business as a co-op, because I do not believe in sole property. And like, we have a non-trust that is holding the land. We're trying to figure out how that works. And at the end, I have to make money of my produce. So like, that's where like working together. And that's the reason I have to work in a nonprofit to make money, actually, to survive. And at the same time, my work with the nonprofit is working with farmers and understanding. So I have a background in education, but more like people, like adult education, English language learning, And when I started a NOFA, I was like, okay, we have the equity committee, but it was nothing to do with the staff in some ways. So the staff was trying to figure out that internally, but the staff itself was like, I don't know if I like this new NOFA idea of like, having, and it was a lot of competition. I think like the basis of colonization in the country creates this like dynamic of competition instead of like collaboration. And I'm like, we can't work this way. Like, we have to work together if we're gonna survive. First of all, as a small nonprofit. Second, as a nonprofit that is membership driven. Because we were losing members left and right because they didn't like, they're like, okay, this is not enough, I know. They weren't informed of what was the vision and how the vision transferred to the membership. It wasn't not a real engagement on membership. So membership, people become a member because one, they could have a cheaper attendance in the conferences, which is farmer to farmer education. And then because they could have a discount in the bulk order. And that was it, right? Like it was those two, it wasn't because it was, I think it was a little bit at the beginning of creating this space for friendship, but it wasn't really a space for moving an agenda forward. And then we have our policy department that does a lot of that agenda of moving and stuff, but people weren't seeing those eye to eye. So like my job has been, we're gonna train the staff in what equity looks like. And we started to have equity trainings 2 hours a week, paid, which it was a pain in the butt because we didn't have it in the budget. And we had, all our staff is part-time. I run a department with at one point 16 workers because Sister Anna used to be under my department. Now she's her own department. And she took some people, thank God. Because I had 16 people working 15 hours, supervising 15 people working and still creating the programming and being in all the staff meetings and board meetings. And so minus to say, this is low production, but if you don't bring everybody along, you're gonna lose people. And we have lost some people, but we're at the point of like, okay, we're not gonna lose any more people. We're gonna pull back, gonna try to get the strugglers, and we're gonna regroup. And the thing is, like, farmers are in the cities and farmers are in rural places. They look very different. We are in very rural places and we are, I think in my county, I'm the only farmer of color besides the people in the city, like in rural place. And it's hard work, but because all your competition are white men with tons of experience, with tons of privilege. And I don't want them to be my enemy. I want them to be my ally and to understand that the food system is not going to survive if we are fighting. And the people that suffer is not just the farmer, it's the people consuming. So if we don't do this with love, if we don't do this because the next generation depends on this, we're not going to make it. And the market is going to keep going to China. We're going to start getting more products from outside because the farmers can't do it. And the young people are not interested in participating in an oppressive system. Like I talk to my kids, they understand this racial game so much better than I do. And they're not willing. I don't think they're afraid of the hard work. I don't think they're afraid of making the same mistakes that the generations before have made. And so I really think that we are here to just pave the road, right? For those younger folks that are really doing a lot of work around, not just gender justice and, gender equality, racial justice, and beyond, and it's not just centered in the US. I feel like they are more aware of. So our job here is just to say, we need to be patient and also need to be open to be the generation to shift. Maybe we're not going to see the end of it, but somebody has to start. And more I have seen in the caucusing, especially more white folks really engaging in this work with love, and more people of color being more open to not be so hurt anymore, and to be able to heal and to be able to move forward. So I'm really excited to see what is next. I'm pretty excited to see how the caucusing goes. I'm just gonna make a plug. It's gonna be a caucusing during lunch. So you have half hour to get your lunch, and you can either go to the if you're a person of color, identify as any of the millions ways that you can be a person of color, or if you identify, as a white ally, you're gonna have two spaces near the cafeteria, so you can have your food and meet with people and try to figure out how we're gonna do this together with your own community. And then hopefully we're gonna be able to, after that, have some points of conversation either at the end of the conference or beyond. So I just wanted to put that plug there.
Thank you. Yes, please do not miss the caucuses and the cafeteria during lunch break. So we have 10 minutes left before we go to Q&A. I'm going to ask for some very brief answers from panelists. but we're going to, in the process of operationalizing racial equity, we've been looking at frameworks, at principles, at processes, at practices, what things we need to change, how do we, the decision-making that's democratic and that's all inclusive, how do we keep each other accountable? How do we make all the, do all these steps that need to be taken so that we can actually put this into practice? So we're going to ask for one major success and one major challenge in this operationalizing process. And we're going to hear a little bit, maybe from Lindsay, that what has it felt like from a white person's perspective, what things you have had to give up, what things you have had to look at differently, and what it has been like, what it is that has been like for you in a challenge or a success.
Thank you. I think that the term "come with a wise heart and a beginner's mind" is been very helpful for me. Being in space with BIPOC, shutting up and listening has been really important. Not thinking that I have the answers, because I do not have the answers, and I used to think I was so wise. I had to cry about that for a while all by myself. So one of the things that I started learning when I was with the Chesapeake Food Trade Network was consent decision-making, which is yet another iteration of consensus. And it's really based in consent culture. It's not just about decision-making, but it's a tool for creating a culture of consent. And so Ulum and I really championed bringing that to the NESAWG staff. We had some training. So I would say that's a success, that we've had some training where we're trying with each of our meetings to use the tools that we were taught. The challenge is that it's a very different way of doing decision making. We still haven't quite figured out how to make decisions in all the different ways we have to make decisions using consent. So there's a lot more learning still to happen. But one of the things I remember, I had two BIPOC chairs that I was with, these tri-chairs at the Chesapeake Food Trade Network, and one of them, Ruth Tyson, said that it was the first time, especially as a 25-year-old woman, that she felt like anyone wanted to know, Black woman, anyone wanted to know what she did and what she cared about. And so the consent process, she felt really enabled her to be heard, which is why I champion it so much, and I want to make sure that it's part of our culture in this order. And I think the one other thing that I would say that has been really valuable to me is to learn how to be curious, not defensive, when you feel challenged, when you're being directly challenged, or when you just feel challenged by the environment that you're in, because it's not going to feel comfortable. It's not going to be the white space that you're used to anymore, especially when it's 95% or even 99% BIPOC led. It's a whole different culture, and I'm loving it, but I also, that's why I'm listening rather than talking. But, trying to listen more.
Thank you, Lindsay. And Malika, how has it been for you coming in these last few years in NESAWG? What successes, what challenges, what changes in operationalizing racial equity have you experienced?
So I think the biggest challenge was, like, how do we actually do it, right? So we're like trying to do this huge change, and we started bringing in new board members, and all of the new board members were BIPOC, and then we had to get a new executive director. And so we brought in Cristina, and right as we brought in Cristina, we were like, it was the beginning of the year, and we were like, now we got to put on our conference day. enormous conference that our whole entire organization like rallies around, and all these other organizations, are a part of. And so we were like, how are we going to really do this, right? So all of the strategies that we had thought about, when it came to actualizing them, we were like, this does not work. Like, we're throwing things out the window. Like, this doesn't work, that doesn't work. And so onboarding a new executive director, like that is in itself is just enormous. So the idea of onboarding and moving into this conference, and on top of that, we're in the middle of transforming our whole entire organization. And so there was this huge, this is one of the biggest challenges that our organization has had. And so we really had to take a step back. So it was interesting because we had, when we were thinking about every year, our NESAWG conference, we have a theme. And so the theme for the year was creating a food system change rooted in love. And so we started, so we're like, head on, we're like, okay, we're gonna do this, we're gonna onboard Cristina, we're gonna do all this organizational transformation, and we're gonna put on our conference. And then we realized, wow, this is actually not what creating a food system change rooted in love is.
Yeah.
In fact, it's totally the opposite. And we're all like stressed, and nobody's sleeping, and you know how it is when you're under that like tremendous pressure. So we were like, so we got to this like crossroad where we're like, okay, here's this big challenge. And part of really like overcoming the challenge is to like honor our self-care. And that is actually what creating a food system change rooted in love is like loving ourselves and loving each other enough to say, whoa, this is not healthy. And here we are all talking about, we're talking about being healthy and realizing that we weren't in fact doing that. And so we had to like put on the brakes really quickly because we were like full steam ahead into conference prep and, all of the things. And we realized that it was a really good opportunity for us to like actually practice doing this really challenging thing and saying, I know everybody was looking forward to this conference and we were too. And we know that you invested time and in creating your sessions and wanting and making plans with your groups and your youth and your people to come and meet up here. And with all of that, we still have to honor this self-care and to show it like this is what it looked like for us. And so it was this beautiful opportunity to take this challenge that we had and to turn it into this accomplishment. Like we feel really good. And we know that these transformations are not overnight. How could we even think that this is going to happen overnight? Let's even honor our people who are farmers. We're putting the seeds in the earth and it sits in the dark. Those seeds sit in the dark and they germinate. And they need that time of rest and darkness and so let's go through that struggle and let's give ourselves that time to like really blossom into the change that we want to be.
Thank you so much. It's thank you for sharing all of these words and all of this wisdom as a priority. Restoring the balance with Mother Earth is crucial for this systems change. And if we are off balance, like Malika was saying, then we need to steer back into balance. That might mean losing a lot of money. We lost a lot of money with this conference. We had to reject some huge grants because they were not aligned with our values and the direction we were going. We had to say no to things that were enticing. But it's more important to keep our balance and be true to our principles and our values. So there's tough decisions to make. And I just want to close this panel with maybe one more opportunity for an individual farmer. Jen, I don't know if you want to add a challenge or a success in a minute or two, because we'd like to also open for Q&A.
Okay, in a minute or two. Let's see. I mean, I think that invitation for slowness and seeing slowness actually as an invitation has been something that I can say is a success and a challenge, particularly coming from the lens of being a very small scale farm, a thriving small scale farm that of which my income solely relies on. So from on a personal level, it's something that I've had to say, intentionally putting that, not just the intention, but the attention towards cultivating a safe and inclusive workspace has really been both beautiful and a relief and a challenge for me, for sure. And so at certain points in my work, I have been the only person of color, on my farm crew, and I have seen that change and continue to change over the years. And so, there have been times where I have felt, that it was, I had to take a step back to, for my own self-care, to really recognize that it is not my sole responsibility to interrupt whiteness, and that everyone that is involved on our farm team is responsible for that. And actually, I should be taking the back burner in a lot of ways, at a lot of times for that. And so really speaking up to that and asking that of my team, so that the burden wasn't falling on me, and that those feelings of grief and rage and everything that we grapple with as marginalized folks, wasn't something that I was bearing any more than I needed to. So I think that, being able to step into that place of my own truth too, and saying that this is something that I need in order for myself and for our business to grow, has been something that has been absolutely a challenge for us.
Thank you so much. So you've heard from a couple of organizations, from individual farmers, and now we want to hear from you if you have some questions for the panelists, or some things that you're grappling with, struggling with in your own process of transformation and racial equity-based transformation. And then again, another plug to hear your stories and to share your stories more fully. We'll do that during the caucusing and lunch hour. So please join us then. But any questions so far? And we also have online folks that might be asking questions as well. So yes. Hi. Hi. If you can say your name and organization if you're affiliated.
My name's Nayana. I'm from Mothers Out Front. And I'd love to have an example of what you thought was going to work and didn't. Because the way you explained it, really thought you had a handle on what was going to work.
So you want like a specific example?
Like a specific example, so I can get more of the feel.
Right. Well, the conference itself, we were like, this is what we do every year. And we've been doing this conference for over a decade. This is what we do.
Over 2 decades.
Right, over 2 decades, right.
Yeah.
And so, and we had, the year before, we had done an online conference with COVID. but we just realized that any kind of conference, it's not going to work right now because we need to take time and space to honor and to like do that. You know, we're trying to transform we are transforming as an organization. And if we don't take that time to do that hard work and, you know, and those conversations and really like connecting with our people. And because this is not just like, we're transforming not just what NESAWG wants it to be, but what do our people need? What can we bring, you know? And so that's not an overnight transformation. So we just gave ourselves more time and we said, you know, no, we're not doing the conference this year. We're giving ourselves time. We're going to connect even more deeply with organizations like NOFA, and we're going to come and have these conversations with our people and get feedback. And so maybe that is a good time to put another plug in the conferences, the caucuses. Yes, please come. There's going to be really wonderful time to share your stories. We want to hear them because this is what's helping us transform. We don't want to do it in this like container all by ourselves. We want to do it with you. And there's also an art piece that we want you to add to. And so it's basic, it's right there in the cafeteria. What do you envision a food system change rooted in love? What does that look like? And, you know, if you want to make something and put it up on our little mural, feel free. If you want to write out a thesis statement, you're welcome to attach that as well. But we just encourage you to be creative and have fun and be artistic and share in that way as well.
So can I offer all of those things, right? Being creative, but also recognize what you did may not work when you're changing your frame, your culture. So it's being willing to let go, right?
Yes.
Of some of those things, like that's what we did. We said
Yes.
the conference is not going to fit right now for who we are wanting to be. So it means not now, doesn't mean not never, but just not now. But it really, if you're making that culture shift, it is slowing down, as you said, Jen, and you said that since Anna and Ulum did as well. But slow down and take time to like build the commitment, build the value, the vision, and also recognize again those things that you used to do. Do they still fit for where you're going? And be willing to, you know, maybe take pieces of it. Or just say bye-bye, you know, and it's okay.
You may say bye-bye to people.
Oh, yes.
You will say bye-bye to people. The other thing that we did was we did our ED search and we thought by December of 2021, we're gonna have a new ED.
Right.
We didn't find someone by December of 2021, and so it was hard, but we stuck to, you know, we're gonna wait until we find the right person.
Right.
And so that set us back, but it also, like, in the same way that not having the conference last year, it was a gift of huge
Right.
proportions to the organization.
Thank you. Back there first, and then let's do stacking and second. Yeah.
Thanks. I'll try and be brief. I want to thank you all for this panel, and I really appreciate Karen. The last thing, what I hear is like a reframing of maybe success in the past isn't the kind of metric for success for the future. And I wonder, as trying to build a different system, there always, in my experience, comes up against funding. And so much funding, especially community food security grants from the USDA, like replicate that what Ruthie Gilmore calls the nonprofit industrial complex. And it's like short-term funding of partnership with the community, and then you drop the community. What are some of the alternative funding sources, or like, I'm so glad that this is about cooperative economy. How can we come together to build different funding sources? What ideas have you used? What are you exploring? What are you excited about?
Did any panelists want to answer that?
I can speak to some of what we're doing on
Okay.
our farm. and then, I mean, there's certainly examples within orgs as well, but, one systems overhaul that we made is creating an equitable sliding scale for both our CSA membership and our programming that happens there. And so we are actually seeking funding within the community, in that way. But it's also, it's not even necessarily seeking it out. It's holding people true to where they're at, both on income and wealth brackets. So there are reflective tools that we have available on our website, and a lot of the language that is there is it's not necessarily ours. And Rocksteady Farm is a really fine example of this work. And so that has been something that has made we have been moving away from those broader asks and looking for grants and funding like that, because we don't fit into that box in many ways. And so being able to be vocal about who we are as a business and as a community entity, and really turning to our community members to say, like, this is the way that we can all work together to be able to create this equitable access has made a huge, it was terrifying to do. I will say it was absolutely terrifying. I thought we're going to lose 90% of our CSA members for sure. I really did. And it's true that people do fall away, and the more that we have become vocal about what we stand for and what we don't stand for, there have absolutely been people that have fallen away, and more people have come. That many more people have come, and the people that we want to be in community with are who's showing up, and the people that are falling away are the ones that we really don't want to be working with when, even when that dollar is tied to that person, and so it's really, I've seen that also within NOFA, and the work that I'm doing in NOFA that we're doing, so it's across both like individual businesses and orgs that I've been bearing witness to this.
So as executive director, I have to raise funds. And it's so much fun. But so it does require to talk with the funders, to talk with the families, because there's a lot of families who hold a lot of wealth. And it's divesting and reinvesting. It is moving and shifting corporate wealth to community wealth, and there's where cooperative businesses come in. They're so important to make that shift, to move the money from corporate to community. And so it does require a culture change. It is important that you tap into, if you're working with philanthropy, tap into those who have already started that journey of change. Haymarket People's Fund, we've interviewed them. They wanted to be in this panel today. There was overlapping. They weren't able to make it, but there is a blog. If you go to our NESAWG website, NESAWG, NESAWG.org, there is a blog about how philanthropy has they're leading the way for the last 10 years or more on how to make that racial equity transformation from the philanthropy sector. But definitely moving the money and from corporate wealth to community wealth, and finding how do we build a new and move the money? How do we build those cooperative businesses and seed funding that's needed for those cooperative businesses to flourish? And it's been so important for the network and our relationships for us to be in constant communication and leveraging resources, sharing information, sharing technical expertise and knowledge, because there is a wealth of resources and knowledge and skills that we don't, we can share it, and that will really. We can do bartering, we can do trading, we can do so many creative things. There was a question here.
And sorry, really quick, so we have a question online too, maybe
Okay.
after.
So, okay, then after that, we'll go online. Yep.
I'm not affiliated, I'm an
Yep.
individual that's coming from a completely different world, but is so interested in this. I have been doing work in diversity at the inclusion for over a decade now, and I had the privilege of being kind of mentored early on by Indigenous, BIPOC identifying people. One of the things that was informally introduced to me was circle practice. They call it restorative, they say restorative justice now. But when I was being taught that, it was part of our organizational equity structure. I wasn't aware that's what language was, but everything we did, including our conferences, would begin and end with circles, particularly for those who are part of the organization, to kind of air out grievances that were happening both on a microaggressive level, but also on a logistical level. And I just thought about, to me, that was the introduction as to how to work as a community to get at something that's so difficult. And I wonder, my question is how much of that is happening now? Because when I first came to this world, there wasn't folks, I wasn't introduced to folks that looked like me. So I kind of left, right? And I went and did diversity, equity, inclusion work, and now I'm seeing more of it. And I'm wondering how much of those values are being integrated in our operationalizing of this, right?
You know, I would say you're calling a circle, but I also say that many of the networks I'm engaged in, community agreements. So we build those and then we hold each other accountable every time we meet. One of the things we do constantly is checking when we have our meetings, we also check in, finding how, and I'm sure you do that too, how people are feeling, what they're bringing in. And then we close with that same kind of offering. But the community agreements are something that we build together, hold each other accountable to, and it does help us through those challenging moments of, you know, I don't agree with that, you know, or, you know, I don't want to do it this way, but it helps you come to some kind of understanding, because again, we want to build relationship so that when Sis Anna says something, I understand from which she's coming with grace and love, so that I can move forward and leaning into it. So I just wanted to offer that from some of the work that I do, and it's so connected to what you're talking about.
And I wanted to say that, like, when Lindsay talked about the decision-making model that we decided to choose to do, a NESAWG has the circle practice. But it's hard when you're trying to do decision-making because you're rooted on making decisions to be efficient instead of rooted and making decisions to be in community. So it's a slow process when you're learning the process, but it's so much easier to make decisions when we respect each other and we can have the conversation sometimes like totally across the spectrum, right? Like somebody, you know, like I could put many examples, but like I would not talk about food here because I could be shut up. So knowing what to talk about and not when. But I think it's a practice of learning how we learn from each other, how we get better at giving feedback and receiving feedback. But in the sense, like the circle practice give you a really good way to learn and know people and build that relationship. And then you can make decisions. They're like, we don't live in a consent-based economy. We don't live in a consent-based society. Like, many times, like the trainers will say, listen, culturally wise, people will say, if you're quiet, you agree in a consent basis. And women know this. When we're quiet, we're not agreeing. We're terrified of something, right? Like if somebody's making a wrong advance to you, you're like out of base and scared, and you quiet, but you're not telling that person that you're actually consenting to that. So I think like understanding that the culture is that you're doing a counterculture in practice, and everybody's agreeing that that's what we're doing, then we can move to the second stage that is actually making decisions, right? So
I agree. Circle practice is a very ancient way to do stuff, but also modern because not a lot of people use it anymore.
And it's trusting the wisdom of the group, like really surrendering to the wisdom of the group. It's not easy to do in this contention when people aren't agreeing. Yeah. But it's when you do that and you get through the difficult thing, everybody is so much. There aren't people who are left rumbling and stuff.
And being
Or
patient
disrupting.
to work through that too.
Yeah.
It is 12:31. We do have a question from online. We haven't included yet our online post. I don't know if people consent to 5 more minutes. But if you do not, please feel free to leave and start grabbing your lunch. Is there some agreement to stay 5 more minutes or? Okay, can we take the question from online and for those who do need to leave, please.
And it's on Hoova also, so I think,
Okay.
you know, folks can chime in after the app too.
Yeah,
This one is specifically for Jen, or anyone else. Provide some info on the language justice you mentioned, any trainings, funding, building that you're committed to. I recognize, that this is a huge shortcoming for my organization and I'm struggling with this. Any suggestions, support would be appreciated. I know there's other people in the room that can speak to and share resources about this too. So I think, yeah, anything you want to say and then.
I think we should plug the work.
Yeah.
that You do Olympic song.
right.
This is a conflict of interest because
Yeah.
my organization's hiring my co-op. So my interpreters that were over there being like busy bees are actually the ones doing the work today. But I have to say that that's part of culture change, right? Like, I came to the US in 2000s and I remember the first thing it was like English only, right? So it's very similar to like whites only. It's like a you know where I'm going, you know, like you know the trend. And it's a counterculture. So like we really, if you see the people that needing interpreting, it's not because they have a shortcoming, it's because the system has a shortcoming and people learn just English and not interested in anything else because that's how the culture is. But we have our people here, their Spanish is the first language and they're up front and they're gonna have access and we're gonna stop the meeting as many times that we have to, so they have access to it. We have some of the trainings in Spanish, right? It's not just to have the interpreters, but you have to pay presenters and look for presenters. It's a lot of knowledge in the community. But the funding, sometimes you have to chop the lawyer's fees. Nobody ever questioned a $300 an hour lawyer fee. I'm not gonna tell you how many times people say, why an interpreter needs $100 an hour. I work with lawyers, they don't think as much as an interpreter. You know, it's a very taxing job. You're thinking, you're, you know, in 2 languages and doing other things. My interpreters interpret and also translate chat sometimes now with the stuff. And some of them have their kids around because it's not childcare right now with the pandemic. So where is the funding? We have pushed organizations and you know, to say, well, if you want to do racial justice, we have to do language justice. But besides that, organizations have to commit to do the transition. And it's not an easy one. You might have to hire staff that might not be prepared for other things, but if they have the language skills, you might have to hire them for that and then train them in other things instead of having your staff trying to train them to learn another language in another culture.
Yeah.
So I think it's a transformational thing too. It's like a cultural thing. So I just, whatever interpreter you can find, look if it aligns with your culture, look if it aligns with your goals, and then look if your budget aligns with what an interpreter needs.
Thank you. It's 12:35. We're gonna close here. The conversation can continue in online with this discussion in this segment.
And we have
So-
resources. We
Yeah.
shared some resources on Aguba.
And there's resources on Google
We can add more to it.
to send this discussion as well as funding. Thank you so much.